Shark Sports Radio begins right now. A Celtics fan and a Lakers fan on the same frequency? Oh, this should be good.
I think ultimately the Celtics find a way to hang banner 18 in 6.
In a world where sports media, lifestyles, humor, and commentary collide.
First time since signing LeBron, the Lakers have said, we don't give a shit about LeBron. We have to worry about the future.
Let's take a dive into this tank.
I know it's early, but my goodness, if there's a 1-0, 2-0 lead, the Red Sox are not coming back. I come to that conclusion. Unfortunately, this year, it's been a mess. They need a change, and I don't think they have the balls to do it. But with the Yankees, they came in, they were supposed to do what they did, right? In game 1, they had a tremendous performance on a Hill.
He's been serving BP balls in every other start, so it was nice for him to get a nice confidence boost. You know, he faces a minor league team like the Red Sox. You know, he really gets his confidence up.
Yeah, really minor league. Really good point. I mean, I was thinking about it today. I'm like, all right, so they decided to get rid of the bats and focus on defense and ground ball pitching. Well, their starter has been pretty bad, to say the least. Their ace, Ron Hare, is going off for 4 or 5 runs per start. Their defense is probably close to the bottom of the MLB in terms of errors. Caleb Durbin, I call him Blake Durbin. I don't know why, but I just feel like he's a Blake type of guy. I should be calling him Caleb Durbin. He has been absolutely atrocious at the plate. I know everybody's like, oh my God, he's batting like 250 in the last 3 games. Who gives a fuck? The guy is batting 150 for the year. So what does that tell you? Just really disappointed to start the year. And overall too, which we'll get into, further down the line, but I think when we look at the MLB right now, the World Baseball Classic had some type of negative impact because it's across the board for the entire league. It's not even the division of the AL East. It's the Central. It's the West. It's the National League. Like all these different, clubs, they just can't get their head on straight. And it's like, did the World Baseball Classic really have that big of an impact that you can't like facilitate like a way of like action or motive to like get your season started on the right foot? I mean, some of these teams are like 4 or 5 games, 6 games, 7 games below 500. Like it's crazy. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the MLB start of the season.
Not a lot of good ball being played.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I'll tell you what. On the NBA side, there has been great ball played. NBA playoffs have taken off tremendously tonight. You got the Orlando Magic versus the Detroit Pistons. To give you a live scores, 25-21 heading into the second quarter. Ticket. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, as I mentioned, but we're also going to talk about the NFL draft because that kicks off tomorrow. And it's very, very exciting. You'll have the draft weekend through Saturday, April 25th. So a lot of good stuff happening right in this time. But I think what's important as we kind of gear towards the NBA, which you and I are, I think at this point, like aficionados when it comes to the NBA and, that type of basketball, we'll kind of break down the different, matchups and what's happening, throughout the playoffs. I'll start very quickly because I want to hear your feedback on what the Lakers have done. Sixers and Celtics tied at 1. The Celtics could not find a way to win last night. And an eye-opener to me, and if this happens throughout the course of the series, they're big trouble. Their on-ball defense has been absolutely atrocious. The I guess sliding under the screens for 3-point shooters, viable 3-point shooters that at least like shoot 35%. Like you're going under screens versus over screens. You're like allowing Tyrese Maxey to beat you off the dribble on the first dribble. Like it is comical what I saw last night. And when I look at the way the Celtics have always been built, it's been built upon their defense. They go as their defense goes. They go as their opportunities to score, in the paint and kick it out for 3 goes. They have the ability to do X, Y, Z. But the issue is they're going to keep relying on the 3. And as we all know, Ticket, you and I played ball. If you can't make the 3 ball, guess what? You're running back in transition defense. And that allows the opponent to make the most of transition offense. You get out in the open, fast break points, long rebounds, you get defensive rebounds. Like you get a rhythm going when you had those type of opportunities with the Philadelphia 76ers, which they made the most of it. Tyrese Maxey went off. VJ Edgecombe went off. Paul George looking like he's 10 years younger. I mean, this is crazy to see this type of performance on the TD Garden floor, parquet floor. It should not happen. What should happen is a close game, but the Sixers should not beat you on your own home floor. So that was such an awful, eye-opening game last night. I said, if this happens again, the Celtics are in deep, deep shit. And I hope for their sake, they tighten up the screws on the defensive side. They learn to work the ball around and stop playing one-on-one, bullshit, and find a way to create for opportunities for others. Yes, Tatum had 19 and 10, and Jalen had 30-plus points. But guess what? That doesn't matter if all your other players are not showing up and balling out too. So Derek White, if you want to be the unsung hero of this team, which you were when you won the championship, find a way to make stuff happen in the series because they're going to need you. Not now. They're going to need you against the Knicks if the Knicks follow the Sixers. So that was my thoughts last night. It was an eye-opener to see Derek White really lost on the defensive side. And usually you don't see that often. You really don't. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, the Celtics, and this is nothing new, like when they struggled with the Knicks last year, what ultimately led to their demise was, they get cold shooting the 3 ball and you let the other teams making shots, they hang around. And listen, the old adage, you live by the 3, you die by the 3. I want to point out what's interesting to me with what the Sixers, and that's similar to Orlando, like I pointed out, I really don't think when you look at just the start, like the depth is not, Philly does not have a lot of depth.
No.
Neither does Orlando. But when you look at the starting 5, the talent disparity, if guys play to a certain level, is not crazy different, right? Like Maxey, I think we can all agree, budding superstar. He took over when the Celtics got into a 2 or 3 point game when Tatum hit that 3 in the fourth quarter. He took over back-to-back threes, the reverse and one layup, quick 9-0 run generated by Maxey by himself. He took over late. In between, it was the VJ Edgecombe show. And he had moments at Baylor where, like, I watched Baylor a little bit from time to time. He had moments where you're like, this guy's clearly the best player on the floor, and he fell in the draft a little bit. And we had moments in the regular season where early in the year you looked at Edgecombe, and he was in the conversation before Flag got it going, where it was him and Knipple for a Rookie of the Year battle. So Edgecombe just has that dog in him. Yeah. And he has that next level, and obviously he's a rookie. He could he could go out the next game in game 3 and be like, 1 of 9 and no one's shocked, right? Because he's a rookie and like you're going to have your ups and downs. But if they get that kind of production from him, and by the way, Paul George really was not much of a factor offensively last night for the Sixers. I would say he was timely buckets, but I would say for the most part, like you didn't really notice him the first, couple quarters. It was really Edgecombe, Maxey. I think they got good minutes from Drummond off the bench. He almost gave him a double-double in like 20 minutes of play. Listen, Boston's going to win this series, but I think Philly could steal another one at home if Paul George gives him a little bit of something. Drummond, Bona, and in the front court. You can't. I mean, and there were moments late in that game where, sometimes it's funny, Shark, as like an outsider from the Celtics and the Green Teamers. When I'm watching like Luka Garza shoot from the perimeter, I'm like, what is it? What are they doing? Why is this part of their offense?
No, I mean,
and listen,
here's the thing: he shoots 40% from three. You're not gonna.
I know it's right. You're right.
You're not gonna knock it.
When it doesn't work, it really is magnified. Like, this is what we're kind of relying, And listen, White and Pritchard are not going to have that kind of stinker again. I wouldn't, they've obviously had success, and we know what they're capable of. And I trust, obviously, the Celtics pedigree more, but it's got to be more than just the Bees, right? It's got to be more than what Brown and Tatum are able to give you. The Jays, excuse me. You got to rely on more than what the Jays can give you.
I was going to say the Bees. We're changing up the nicknames.
Yeah, I don't know. It was one of the Bruins, but no, Boston's going to be fine. It's just like you're going to have games like this when you play the style that the Celtics play, as you know.
Yeah, and like the supporting cast with Pritchard, he played 27 minutes, had 4 points. Like you mentioned, that probably won't happen again. The Derek White situation is off to me because he's usually a guy that you could just rely on, to make big shots. He hit like one or two down the stretch, so I can't give him too much. But, defensively, it was just kind of like Maxey was beating him off the dribble, and I'm like, you have to stay in front of that guy. That's the number one thing you got to do with Maxey, is stay in front of him. Because if you're behind, see you later. No matter who you're playing, no matter how good of a defender you are, it's not going to matter. Tyrese Maxey is coming to ball in this playoffs. He's got the attitude. Edgecombe's got the attitude. So if I'm the Celtics, losing on your home floor is an eye-opener. You're going to Philly. You better pack your bags and be ready to ball up in Philly, because if not, it's going to be a long ride home. Who knows what that could be. And it's not doomsday, but again, you're trying to beat Philly in 5 or 6 to get ready for the Knicks. And guess what? Celtics fall flat when they play physical teams. And that's exactly what Philly's doing, is being physical with the Celtics. So watch out for the physicality portion. Let's get into the Lakers. The Lakers are up 2-0 on the Rockets. LeBron looking 10 years younger. No Doncic, no Reeves. You got KD back. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, game one, it was a little bit surprising. Obviously, KD not playing, with the knee injury. So, listen, they got away with that one, and then I fully expected it to be a battle last night, and it was. Defensive struggle. What's really impressing me with the Lakers is just their defense. Now, I think part of that's magnified because, listen, Durant is the only guy who's capable of shot creating and shot making with Van Fleet out. And even with Van Fleet, they're just so limited offensively, right? Like, Thompson is not able to give them anything. Reed Shepherd's not making shots. Sengun is not obviously he's a guy who wants to play more in the post. He's not, he can occasionally step out and hit a shot, but that's not where you want him. And the Lakers, I mean, Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard giving you the production that they have. Like, who would have thought the year 2026, Marcus Smart would give you 25 points in a playoff game, right? That just seems crazy. But the defensive rotations for the Lakers have been outstanding. LeBron looks, like you said, looks like he's drank from the fountain of youth. This is all going to be for naught because I'm optimistic they obviously get out of this round. They're up 2-0. I think it goes 5 or 6. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the Rockets look so lost offensively that, I mean, credit to JJ Redick, and LeBron mentioned it. They're throwing everything at Durant. They're giving him different looks. He turned it over, I think, 8 or 9 times last night. They're just forcing somebody else to beat them. And I don't think the Rockets have anybody capable, at least, I know it's crazy saying Smart and Kennard. I'm not even going to put Smart in this, but like, at least with Luke Kennard, right? If he's open, he's going to knock down shots. He's an absolute sniper. So he's kind of filled in for what the Reeves role is. They don't need a lot of offense to beat this team. They just don't. So they play tight defense, and they're gonna have a chance to walk over this Rockets team, just for the lack of offense that the Rockets come with. I mean, like I said, it's crazy that they don't have. This was a team that, I mean, even myself included, thought they could contend for the Western Conference, and it's just magnified how little offensively they have, especially with Van Fleet out. So it's nice, but I know what's awaiting in the next round, and that's the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder, who, a fun tidbit on this Shark, I saw somebody sent this to me today on Twitter, but Vegas odds have the Thunder as likely to win the game by 40 or more tonight than it is the Suns winning the game.
Yeah. That's a crazy stat. Yeah. That's an anomaly. That never happens. I'll say this. What I'm seeing out of the Lakers is promise with JJ Redick, with like doing as much as he's doing with so little. And if you look at this, and this is no knock on LeBron. LeBron's doing a hell of a job, but you're without Doncic, you're without Reeves. There can be a little bit of an adjustment, right? And it doesn't seem like there's a major adjustment going on with the Lakers. And it seems like with Ime Udoka, it's kind of blasphemous when you think of it. Like, when you have the ability to defend at a high level like Ime Udoka teams do, but you don't have the effort. And that's the thing. Effort relies on other guys making plays. It's not just Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant coming back from injury too. Like, he needs a little bit of time to get his feet wet. Well, now is not the time to get your feet wet because you don't have time. You're down now 2-0. You're playing catch up. You got young guys that are trying to get the opportunity to score at a high level, but they can't because they're too young in the sport within the playoffs. You got Thompson and Reed. I just with Shepherd. I look at the Rockets and I say it's false advertisement. What I'm watching is not real. Like, it can't be real. Segun is out of his mind bad right now. He belongs in like the 90s playing back to the basket basketball because he doesn't know how to play today's NBA. Like I said, Kevin Durant coming back from injury, Thompson giving up the turnovers left and right, just out of control with the basketball. He's one of my favorite guards to watch in the NBA. And it's just painful to watch that team play. On the flip side with the Lakers, again, there's promise. There's promise with LeBron still on the court, and he's playing at an incredible high level. For his years in the NBA, as long as his longevity has been with 23 years in the NBA, is absolutely insane and ridiculous. And what he's doing right now, we haven't really seen like a 40-year-old type of basketball player that's playing at this type of level. But he is, and you got to give him credit. So with the Lakers and what they've been doing is kind of like old school LeBron, taking it to the hoop, kicking it out for three, dishing out the basketball, getting out in transition, playing really good defense. JJ Redick's becoming a believer in front of a lot of people's eyes. And so if there is just one of those, moments for LeBron down the stretch late in his career, this could be a big moment. I mean, a lot of people had Houston Rockets winning this series. Now, I'm not saying the series is over by any means, but what I'm saying is the effort in LeBron James and those Los Angeles Lakers without Doncic, without, Reeves, I can only imagine what it's like with JJ Redick on the backside to feel like they have a chance, right? So kudos to your Lakers, putting up that type of performance. Thunder and Suns, I don't think there's a shock here. Thunder are only up 1-0 because there's only been one game they played tonight. I don't necessarily know like what the Suns have in order to beat the Thunder. I think it's just kind of one of those runaway games tonight, like you mentioned, the 40+ point margin. And when I look at the Thunder, I think the Celtics should be doing what the Thunder are doing to the Suns. And it's just like a little bit of a lackadaisical type of mindset with the Celtics. And I think the Thunder are all business, and they have been about it all year because they're defending champs. But you can't see the Suns really making a push, right? I mean, this isn't gonna happen.
No, we can save ourselves some time tonight, Shark, and
good.
Yeah. Thunder are gonna sweep them. We know that. It's
T-Wolves and Nuggets. Yeah, T-Wolves and Nuggets. This is the game. This is the match that we all care about. It's tied at 1. Ant-Man came alive in game 2, scoring 30, dropping 17. 17. I think he dropped 17 like the second half, but it was 10 rebounds as well. So when you look at the Nuggets, when you look at the Wolves, I think this is the series that everybody has their eyes on in the first round. What have been your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, game 1, Denver kind of walked all over them, and it looked like it was heading that way. Game 2, Nuggets got out to like a big, I think 15, 16-point lead in the first quarter, early second, and then there was a push. Wolves tied it up at halftime. It became a track meet. And Jaden Daniels talked about it a little bit. He was like, that team does not want to play defense. They don't play defense. They don't want to run. We need to make this a track meet. And they did, and they saw the advantages of it. Like Murray and Joker down the stretch were gassed. Yeah, they were absolutely gassed. They had nothing left in the tank. Murray was, early on, especially in that first half, I think Murray went for like 26 or something like that. And then his legs went. They can only go so much. And Joker, same thing. I mean, he always looks like he's kind of laboring up the floor, but he was definitely tired. And credit Rudy Gobert. He's done, I know it's weird to say, he held them when the guy's putting up triple doubles. But in the first half, Joker had 4 points, 6 points out of 64 for the Nuggets. And obviously they forced him to be a jump shooting team. They're forcing Joker to live outside the paint a little bit and not just take up space. And Gobert deserves his credit. He's a guy that normally gets killed in this matchup with Joker. They've met up a bunch of times in the playoffs, even going back to when Rudy was with the Jazz. But he's held his ground, and you got to tip your cap. I don't think they'd be tied up if it wasn't for Gobert's defensive efforts, especially in game 2. And this is the series, like you said, everyone's watching. This feels like the Western Conference Finals, but in the first round. It just has that feel to it. Because both teams believe that if they come out of this, they are going to get to the Western Conference Finals, and they can win it all, right? The Western, whoever comes out the West, I think will be favored, Shark. And unless it's San Antonio, which, obviously they're young, and if they got Boston, I could see Boston obviously being favored. But, there's experience with the Nuggets. Obviously, they've won a title. And the Wolves have been knocking on the door for a little bit, and they just haven't gotten over the hump. But they have one of the best players in the world in Anthony Edwards. And that's what makes this so interesting. So, yeah, great series so far, Shark. I'm with you. I think everybody has this circled as the must-watch series.
Yeah, and I want to just touch upon, point that you made, with the endurance side of it. Jokic is on 40 minutes a night, right? Murray was 43 the other night. They're going to have to be, in game shape. And, if they're feeling not in it, I mean, it's going to be a big hit for the Nuggets. You saw it the other night, like you said, they were gassed within the third quarter. Tim Hardaway, 27 minutes, 16 points, a guy that you can rely from 3. He was 3 for 3 from 3. Bruce Brown, right? Everybody had eyes on him. Jonas Valanciunas, a big pickup. In the trade deadline. David Roddy, they have guys that can at least make, a presence off the bench. And that's something that kind of, if you look at the gap years where the Nuggets were like, oh man, we just don't have it this year. A big piece and reason why is because they didn't have the bench. They didn't have the supporting cast. But you go out and get a guy like Hardaway. You go out and get a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, Bruce Brown. You do have to make up for the years. I mean, these guys are, older, right? And so Nuggets are old veteran team who find a way to win some games. And yes, I understand that there might be, a few guys in the mix that, still have plenty of tires, left to go. But, like a guy like Cam Johnson who can go off any point in any time, but, he's not getting the rock as much as Murray is handling the basketball. So that's something that I want to see is the Nuggets move the ball around a little more. I think they're being too gun shy from three, and who knows if it's because of, them being tired, their stamina is down, like you mentioned, Ticket. So I agree with you. But again, if I'm looking at the climax of this series, it's going to be the Nuggets bench. Can the Nuggets bench hold their own, against the Minnesota bench, A, but B, create the pace, because they're going to have to create the pace if Jokic and Murray are feeling tired. Let's move on to the Blazers and the Spurs. So something happened last night. I'm sure the NBA world knows about this. Victor Wembanyama, went out with a concussion. He whacked his head on the floor, unfortunately. Blazers found a way to win that game and tie up the series 1-1. A big blow to the Spurs on their home floor. Victor Wembanyama falling to the ground, smacking his head right down. You kind of knew it right away. He's knocked out. He just wasn't feeling himself. And the way he kind of slipped and fell was very, very awkward. And anytime you see an awkward fall, it usually is more catastrophic of an injury. So it was one of those things where, you grasp for air because you want Victor Wembanyama to be healthy, because the Spurs are a fun team to watch. The Blazers are a bunch of dogs. And I think going back to Portland will suit them well, not only because of Victor Wembanyama not playing, but and who knows, he may play, but it doesn't look like good news because he's probably still in concussion protocol, by that time, unfortunately. But the way that the Blazers are playing, they play like they had nothing to lose. Thiago Splitter's out there coaching up this team at a high level. Denny Avia looking like a superstar on that court. You got good mix and matching with the veterans. You got Drew Holiday and Robert Williams coming off the bench. And Scoot Henderson balling out in his first real playoff game. I can really see the Blazers putting up a fight with the Spurs until we all know when Wembanyama comes back. But how big of a blow, do you feel like Wembanyama has, is going to be moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's huge, right? Like he's the straw that stirs the drink.
Yeah.
For the San Antonio Spurs. But I mean, listen, he went down. Was it early second, midway second, and
yeah,
they were up, not like running away with it, but the Spurs had pretty firm control until the last couple of minutes, and things fell apart for them.
Yep.
I think they're very capable of winning comfortably in Portland Game 3. Now they're young, but I think this is where De'Aaron Fox, having a veteran point guard at the helm, is going to make a huge difference. Not that Fox has tremendous playoff experience. He's only been there one other time with the Kings, the whole light the beam year a few years ago, where they went 7 with the Warriors. That was a great series. But it's still more experience than anybody really has on Portland outside of Drew Holiday. So you have 2 veteran point guards who have tasted this moment before, know what it's like, but I think the Spurs really going to lean heavy on Fox. And I do think San Antonio will still win this in 5, maybe 6. I'd be curious if they win Game 3. Do they really want to push Wemby? And I know it's concussion. It's not like a bone thing or anything like that. It's not a strain. But maybe they want to be careful with him, right? I mean, after all, they only go as far as Wemby will probably take them. So,
right.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they rest him even for Game 4 and then maybe look to bring him out for a closeout game if they're up and in that situation. But, yeah, I think you're right. I don't expect he would play Game 3. But, yeah, I don't really know if I don't think they need him to beat Portland. And I think they can take their chances resting him a little bit in this series.
I don't know about that. I like Portland. If Wemby can't go, like, say the next 2 games, I think this might go 6 or 7. I don't know. I don't know if San Antonio has the ability to have like the different dynamic that Portland has been, playing with. Like I look at Portland and like Shaedon Sharpe, Denny Avia. Denny's like having a coming out party this playoff.
Yeah, he's playing well. He's playing very well.
And so I don't see that train stopping at any point, really, because I don't think they can guard him the way that he plays basketball, because he's very, very unique. And the way that Portland's been coaching, this team up, Tiago Splitter and staff have drew up like really good plays if you watch it, with Avia. And like Robert Williams, like he's been a helpful piece, coming off the bench. But I just think that there's a mystery there. But I tend to think that mystery could be in the favor of the Blazers if Wemby's not doing well. But move on to tonight's game. We got Pistons versus the Magic. Pistons are up 1-0 on the Magic in the series. It's tied, I think, 37 to pop. This has been a pretty highly contested series, like especially down the stretch in games. Cade Cunningham, feeling a little bit, not into it, unfortunately, right now. I think he still has to work, his endurance out, because I feel like, coming back from injury, has been something that he needs to, get back into basketball pace and shape. Yes, they have viable weapons on Detroit, but Orlando could be a sneaky team where it takes them at least 6 or 7. And that was something that I didn't think of, going into the series, but they've been putting up fights in these games. And so if the Pistons, find a way to, create opportunity at home, yes, home court advantage matters, especially in Auburn Hills, at the Palace. But I don't necessarily think that the Orlando Magic have enough in order to keep the Pistons down. But the Pistons need to really play their brand of basketball. And I think that's something that has been kind of missing, to be honest.
Yeah. I talked about it on our previous show last week, Shark. I think this is not your typical 1-8 seed disparity in talent. Now, we know the Magic struggle with depth, and, they have their issues with, their bench giving them anything offensively. And at times they can struggle offensively with their starting group. But there's guys, and I would argue the Magic have more shot makers than the Pistons do, right? Like,
yeah,
Boncaro, who's a budding star, just like Cade Cunningham is. And granted, Cunningham's a better all-around playmaker, scorer. But outside of Cade, like, if they have to turn to make a shot, who's going to make the shot? Is it Tobias Harris?
Yeah. No.
Right? Like, they just don't have, like, another guy that can give them the – now, granted, the Wizards, you look at them and you say – the Magic, and you say, well, Franz Wagner can make some big shots on the stretch.
He can.
Desmond Bane is capable of making some big shots and giving – they have 3 guys that if they – not that they would all do this at the same – but they have 3 guys capable of giving you 30 on any given night between those 3 players.
Yeah.
Outside of Cade Cunningham and Duran, but Duran, he was invisible game 1. Offensively, on the glass, everywhere, he was not good. And he's a big man. So, he relies so much on everyone else getting him the ball. He doesn't dictate or create for himself. So I look at that and I say the Magic are definitely going to have a chance to steal this series, especially after taking game 1. And, as you pointed out, Shark, we're recording this as game 2 is going on, and it's almost halftime. Orlando's only down 1. So, we'll see.
I actually made the error of saying the Pistons are up 1. I meant the Magic, because the Magic that's kind of what surprised me, looking back on this, series opener, is, the Magic have a lot of dog in them, a lot of fight in them. Yeah, and maybe to a point where Detroit maybe, I know it's early on in the series, but are they considered front runners? Are they just, a team that, could put up, great numbers and a great season in the regular season, but then when it comes to the playoffs, do they, just melt down? They're a young team. JB Bickerstaff does have a tendency in his past to do that, where, he takes a team to the 3 seed and then melts in the playoffs, which is the reason why I kind of got let go in Cleveland. So that could be something that you got to keep a storyline out for, is, does Detroit's, number 1 hopes, does it stop in the first round? And, you just kind of watch the Magic play basketball and their brand and, how they fight. Like you said, I think it's, takes up a lot of space for the Pistons to do their work. Cleveland Cavaliers, they're up 2-0 on the Raptors. Not a real surprise here. I feel like the Raptors, they just have a lot of guys that play the same brand of basketball. And it's just one of those things where it's like, do they have enough dog killers on that team? The answer to that is no. Cleveland has plenty and a lot of guys that can make runs, like James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Like, those guys can flat out play. And DeAndre Hunter, too. I mean, talk about a guy coming off the bench who's been pretty solid. Like, I look at the Cleveland Cavaliers and I say, yeah, that series is all wrapped up with a bow on it. Probably be over in 5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought this would be a little bit closer, and I wasn't sure because, we pointed out on our preview show, it would make sense, like, looking at the roster and how things are comprised and the talent that's there. Like, okay, the Raptors probably don't have a shot in this.
Right.
But I was questioning Bickerstaff, not the coaching so much, but just the motor for, like, okay, Harden and Mitchell have been guys that have fallen short in the playoffs before, and they've had issues. And, Toronto is playing with house money. And sometimes the young team with house money, we've seen it in the past. We're looking at it with Portland, for example. We're looking at it in the past with that. They remind me a little bit of that Pelicans team that played the Suns a few years ago, where the Suns made the finals.
Yeah.
But they went 6 games, and like Jose Alvarado was like, and Willie Green, first year head coach there, and like they were just scrappy. And I thought Toronto would be a little bit scrappier, but sometimes you just can't overcome. Once again, we talk about like shot making and shot creating. Mitchell, Harden, Mobley, right there. There's not a lot. It's a great core, and then you got shooters with Strus and Wade coming off the bench. You talked about obviously the depth that they have, Shark. I just don't see this going much further. Toronto maybe still has one at home in Canada, but I think this is over. Gentlemen sweep with 5.
I think also Cleveland's like teetering to be like an Eastern Conference team. Like, if they make it to the second round, they got to go up against the Magic. That's something that we'll preview. But I look at Cleveland as a team that's not going to stop. That train won't stop. To round this all up with the NBA playoffs, we got the Hawks and the Knicks tied at 1. I want to talk about CJ McCollum because I think this is opportunity. He's 33 years old, right? He's like, I want the opportunity to be back in the playoffs, find a way to make the most of, my career. And like at this point, he was the guy that always was looked at as Dame's, right-hand man, right? And, throughout the course of his career, I felt like it was just one of those things where he's like, ability was a little bit uncapped. And I feel like the way he's playing basketball now, he seems to be more free. Quinn Snyder's perfect coach for his type of system. He's always been, really good with those type of wing point guards like Gordon Hayward or Donovan Mitchell. Like, he's always had Trae Young. He's always had guys that he can rely on, to be that bona fide killer. And CJ McCollum, if you look back, everybody, I know I talk about it a lot, but, CJ McCollum with Lehigh going up against Duke. Like, if you have that feeling, you can go back to that moment and be like, that's what got me drafted. That's what can make me great. I've been there and done that against, a dominant foe. Why can't I do that against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden? Now, was last night really their, the climax of their playoffs? Probably. I don't think that the Hawks will win the series, but it's a nice to have. It's a nice moment for CJ McCollum to come out and, do what he did, dropping, close to 30 points and having a way to create opportunity for his team to steal one in Madison Square Garden, which everybody says is like the toughest place to play in the NBA. So, outside of Boston. So when you look at the Hawks and the Knicks, it's a battle, but it goes back to ATL. And so the Hawks, you're in the driver's seat now. The momentum has, shortly shifted. But what are you capable of doing in Atlanta? What are they capable of doing in Atlanta, Ticket?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Knicks kind of let one slip away. They were up 13-14 with like 6-7 to go, and then it all kind of collapsed. So, I would say the Knicks have been firmly in control most of this series. They let one get away, obviously, like I said, in game 2. The interesting thing was that McCollum really put the team on his back. He didn't get a lot of help from like Alexander Walker, game 2. Jalen Johnson hasn't been like the demonstrative scoring threat that we know he's capable of. So if you're Atlanta, you're looking at this as 1-1. And yes, you've gotten everything you can out of your leader in CJ McCollum. But your other guys that you could rely on or you're going to need to rely on, they haven't produced. And as they say, especially when it comes to the NBA, when you get back home, that's where the role players get the confidence. That's where they really shine. So I think Atlanta and New York will split these next 2 in Atlanta. I think the Knicks take game 5. And then, I think the Knicks will wrap it up in 6, but I wouldn't be surprised if this goes back to MSG for a game 7.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't be. Atlanta has the capability to make this to be a pest. That's for sure.
Yeah. No. I agree with you. It's not to cut you off there. Game 7, I think, is what the, predictions are. But when I look at, like you said, the role players, like Okongwu playing really, really well, but, I don't think he's, especially in the regular season, he had a great regular season. I think he needs to have like a coming out party in Atlanta. You talked about Jalen Johnson, but when I look at like Dyson Daniels, I can see a little bit of Josh Hart in him, like the dog, the knack to want to be better, the effort plays, like he's making opportunity, but also Jonathan Kuminga. I think he has to have an opportunity with a big time performance in Atlanta. And that's something that, I look forward to because I like watching Atlanta. I think they're a fun team. I talked about it at the beginning of the series. But, I think it's just one of those things where you haven't seen enough yet. And I think you will in Atlanta. And so I'm really excited to see what they're capable of doing, on their home floor. Let's flip it over to the pigskin. We got the NFL draft coming up tomorrow night, Thursday, April 23rd. And when you think of the NFL draft, you think of the bells and whistles. You got the lights, the camera, and the action, right? When you look at the Vegas Raiders, they have the number 1 pick. Ticket, I have my pick. But what do they do with the number 1 pick? I think it's kind of obvious, right?
Yeah, there's no way it's not Fernando Mendoza. They are, everybody knows that this was going to be the pick, and there's going to be no surprises in Pittsburgh tomorrow night when the Raiders hand this pick in. So they got the Mendoza jerseys already printed in Las Vegas. They are ready to go. They will be selling the shit out of them, I'm sure. The only interesting dynamic to me is, do they get a Godfather offer from my team? That's the only question. Do the Jets love Mendoza enough where they package all these draft picks and turn it in? And even if so, I don't know if the Raiders do it.
No, I don't think.
It would have to be 4 first, right? Like,
yeah. But also, look who's calling the shots, right? If you look at Brady, in his player development, scouting, whatever it is, like he has a knack of finding guys. Fernando Mendoza is the guy that they're licking their chops for. And I guarantee if the Jets call them, they say no, because Brady's like, I will never try to help restart the Jets organization as long as I live. That's just a fact. So that's why I don't think that would ever happen. But hey, if they throw 7 or 8 first-round picks, maybe.
That's enough. That's enough where you say, I think. And listen, if I'm the Jets, I don't do it.
No.
But if there's anyone that have the capital to go and make the move for the number 1 pick, it's them. But it's not going to happen. Fernando Mendoza is going to be a Vegas Raider. Yeah, we can move on.
Correct. I'll give it over to you for the Jets at number 2. What do they need?
Yeah, so Shark, I obviously peeped the notes that you had. I agree. I don't want to steal, your take. But yeah, I mean, listen, the Jets need defense. They have Aaron Glenn. Their defense was pitiful last year. Famously, obviously, they did not get an interception the entirety of the NFL season, which no team had gone beyond week 10 or 11, I believe, previously. Wow. Without getting one. We did it the entire year. As my friends have liked to joke, Twitter ran with this. Roy McIlroy has won 2 Masters since the Jets last had an interception on defense. It's real tough sledding out there for Jets fans.
Yep. It's been tough.
They need defense. They need edge. The debate has been Arvell Reese or David Bailey. I personally like David Bailey better. I think this is the classic case of one has a higher ceiling, the other has a higher floor. And I just don't like the issues with Reese, where it's like he disappeared in stretches during that season, whereas David Bailey was by far consistently dominant, high motor, high intensity. I know they only played one game, but to me in the CFP and the college football playoffs, Texas Tech had a bye, then they played one game, they got knocked out, obliterated by Oregon. The only reason why they even had a pulse in that game in the first half was David Bailey's impact. He looked like the most dominant player that I saw defensively, other than Ruben Bain, obviously, because Ruben Bain, he got to play 4 games, and it was evident, obviously, what he did for the year. Yeah. But David Bailey, to me, was the most impressive player in a single game defensively, and in a losing effort. And he's gonna, he can get used to that because he's gonna lose a lot of games with the Jets. But I just love David Bailey's motor. I think it's a low floor, high floor. And the ceiling's still high with him. When we talk about ceiling, like Reese is being compared to Micah Parsons, and Bailey is still right up there in terms, not maybe Parsons level impact of ceiling, but he's still going to be a Pro Bowl caliber edge rusher if he hits his potential. So I love David Bailey. I would like to see the Jets take him. And the other possibility is they trade down if somebody's really in love with Reese to the point where they want to jump ahead and take him at 2.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, while you're talking about it, because if somebody's really in love with Reese, why not make that move, and you can acquire more assets and maybe move down 2 or 3 spots and still maybe get a potential, David Bailey. You probably heard my dog barking in the background. That's the definition of David Bailey. He's a dog. Jadeveon Clowney, his ceiling should have been met, right? And I see David Bailey as being like what Jadeveon Clowney should have been. And I could see him very powerful coming off that line, very, very fast, physical. He beats guys to the punch. He doesn't let offensive tackles beat him. Being in a 4-3 defense with Aaron Glenn too, I just think Bailey will unlock a ton of potential. He's a standing edge rusher. He's a guy that wants to get after the quarterback at a high clip, similar to how Bradley Chubb was early on in his career with the Denver Broncos. I can see a very similar path with David Bailey, but being way more dominant. This guy is a beast. And I think he's a guy that you cannot slouch on. I think you have to pick him with the number 2 pick. Number 3, I'll take this one. Arizona, run up and get Jeremiah Love. When I look at Jeremiah Love and the playmaker he makes everyone better around him. And let's talk about what the impact on Marvin Harrison has been. So Marvin Harrison Jr. really hasn't done much because there hasn't been enough help, right? Trey McBride's now in the mix, yes, but they don't have that running, type of weapon that they can utilize in the backfield and find a way to create opportunities, going up against linebackers and bulldozing through them and find a way to get into the end zone. Like James Conner is a nice piece to have, but when you have Jeremiah Love right there with the opportunity at the number 3 pick, it's going to be hard to decide not to take him. I think Arizona comes out and takes him, surprises a lot of people. Yes, they have James Conner, but I think that Arizona needs Jeremiah Love in order to unlock the potential on the outside and inside, those type of offensive playmakers that they have. So I think Arizona picks Love.
I'm going to kind of so I know there's some questions now with a back injury, but I think Francis Maioga out of Miami, offensive line pick here. Listen, they hired Mike LaFleur, a head coach, and obviously in the LaFleur Shanahan coaching tree, run game is important. So Love, I understand that. I just don't think the roster is good enough where they can justify taking him at 3.
Right.
Whereas if you can get a plug and play, best lineman in the draft class, put him in and insert him right away, and you have you're a cornerstone lineman, similar to, I know he's not regarded in the same light as Penei Sewell, but in a similar effect where you put him in, you are good to go for the next decade. You have a cornerstone lineman you can build around with your offense. So that's kind of how I view this pick. Now, like I said, he's not as good a prospect overall as Penei Sewell was, but listen, you have a cornerstone tackle that you can build around, offensive tackle, and Francis Maioga. I think you take him. So that's where I have the Cardinals taken at 3.
Yeah, so we'll talk about number 4 with Tennessee Titans. I think their biggest need is offensive line. I have Francis Maioga, from Miami. Look, the protection is needed for Cam Ward. Cam Ward came from Miami. They might have a good relationship. Who knows? Behind closed doors. Brian Daboll relies heavily on the offensive side of the football due to the fact that he has that offensive mind. He needs that tackle. And I think Francis Maioga is perfect for that opportunity to create Tony Pollard coming out of the backfield, protect, like I said, Cam Ward at all costs because he's your quarterback of the future. That's what you decided on last year. So if I am Tennessee and I have the ability to get Francis Maioga with this pick, I am rushing it up because there are plenty of other teams that are probably licking their chops trying to get in the top 5 to get Tennessee Titans pick. So if I'm Tennessee, you go with Francis Maioga, the offensive line out of Miami. Number 5. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I do. I certainly like that. Ideology, right? Like you have Cam Ward and Brian Daboll and Robert Saleh both were without jobs because of how poor their offensive line performed protecting their young quarterback. So yeah, I think they can appreciate that.
I wouldn't even be surprised too if they try to trade up, maybe like the 3rd pick or the 2nd pick, maybe with your Jets, just to try to get that offensive line off the board, because there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be like, I got to get somehow in the top 3, top 5 and get the best tackle, in the draft. But I know I cut over, your pick at the Titans. What do you got with the Titans?
No, you're good. I mean, I have the Titans. This is where like Robert Saleh would run in Arvell Reese on my board, since I have Maioga going to the Cardinals. But obviously, defensive-minded coach and the chance to get what many think is, at least, like I said, the highest ceiling defensive player, edge rusher, pass rusher, dynamic defensive weapon, a guy that could be like a Micah Parsons as people project him out to be. Saleh would salivate at that. So I don't think he passes that up if Arvell Reese is on the board.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. And, Saleh being the coach, I totally get that. And, he might be in favor, when it comes to that selection. Number 5, we got the New York Giants. The biggest need for the New York Giants is defensive line, offensive line, cornerback, linebacker, wide receiver. But guess what my pick is? Safety, Caleb Downs from Ohio State University. Look, when you look at John Harbaugh, he has always found a way to get playmakers in the secondary. Secret weapon was Kyle Hamilton with the Ravens. A similar build, similar style. I think that Caleb Downs would feast in that Giants defense. And they need a defensive playmaker in the secondary. And so if I am looking at it and I see Caleb Downs there at pick number 5, you best bet I'm picking that pick, and I'm going Downs to be that figure in the defense.
Yeah, I have them going Jeremiah Love here. The Downs pick, I'd be curious just because they did sign Javon Holland, who I know is older, and Tyler Nubin. So, they invested in safety. I do agree with you. That's obviously the calling card when you think about Harbaugh. he values safety a lot. They obviously Kyle Hamilton, obviously Ed Reed going back. I'd be very curious to see how this shakes out, but I do think the chance to pair Jeremiah Love with Jackson Dart in that backfield with Scatterboo as obviously the short yardage situation back. I don't think it's an immediate need because I do like Tyrone Tracy, but Love would probably be the best player on the board, I would suppose. Sonny Styles might be an option here as well.
Yeah.
But I think the Giants obviously realize what they have, and the idea of Dart and Love in that backfield might be too tempting for them to pass up. So I have them taking Love, but very curious to see how it shakes out because the Giants have a lot of potential to make moves, especially considering the trade they made get the number 10 overall pick as well.
Yeah. They found an opportunity that, a lot of teams just don't have, and that's two top 10 picks. At number 6, we got the Cleveland Browns, the biggest needs: quarterback. Are you sure? Offensive line, wide receiver, cornerback, and edge. Look, I think they're sick of going to draft the quarterback in the first round. I think that Sanders and they got Watson. I think that's doable for now. You can find possibly a guy in the second or third round that you want to, draft a quarterback, but you've invested all this money with Watson. You invested a draft pick with Sanders. I think it's about time that you kind of shore up those offensive weapons. Now, Jerry Jeudy has been, he can't do it all, right? He had some glimpses last year and the year before, but when you look at Jerry Jeudy, he needs to find protection in his, way of moving, with the Cleveland Browns in their system. Carnell Tate of Ohio State University, he fared well in the combine, having one of the best scores for wide receivers. He went to Ohio State. We got Cleveland, Ohio man. I'm thinking that right now where Cleveland is, they have to make a smart play, and I think Carnell Tate is the wide receiver that they select. And they draft a quarterback later in the rounds.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think Carnell Tate's the guy. Obviously, the connection, the Ohio connection for one, but they really do need a real outside threat. And if they believe in Shedeur Sanders as franchise quarterback, you want to put the right weapons around him. And Carnell Tate, absolute beast. And on a field that was also, Jeremiah Smith was also out there. Tate had moments where he looked like the guy that everyone was raving about as like the can't miss receiving prospect. And clearly he is, because we both have him going at number 6 overall, and he's definitely probably going to be the first receiver off the board. So yeah, I got Tate to the Browns. It seems like a no-brainer on several fronts.
Yeah, no-brainer for sure. Number 7, Washington Commanders, biggest needs: wide receiver, edge, offensive line. When I'm thinking about the edge, I'm thinking about Ruben Bain. Yes, we know he's, a little bit in trouble right now, but when I look at Ruben Bain and what he's capable of doing in Dan Quinn's defense, I have to decide, do I go Bain or do I go Lemon? What's more important to my system? I think is working on the defensive side. You have to get after the quarterback. Jackson Dart now has John Harbaugh under his system. You have Jalen Hurts and, Nick Sirianni and what they're capable of doing offensively there. I just look at it, and with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, you have to get a pass rusher, to create, a lot of like clutter. I think a lot of, the guys have good offensive lines in that division. And so it's about time that you get a pass rusher that you can rely on. And I think Ruben Bain is the guy that I'm selecting with this pick.
Yeah, and I have them going edge too. It's either going to be Ruben Bain or Sonny Styles maybe at linebacker. I know Ruben Bain is more of the traditional new age, like that hybrid edge rush type, where Sonny Styles could probably play a little bit more of both. He can go into coverage. Honestly, I don't think you can, Bain obviously has the knock with, the short arms and everything like that, that people, had cracked about on, certainly online with the combine and the measurements and all that. Sonny Styles is just an absolute freak athlete. He might be too much for Dan Quinn to pass up because he looks at the ability, but this is similar to the David Bailey situation that I talked about. Like Ruben Bain has tremendous production, And there's something that can't be discounted with a motor and a guy who showed up in big games, right? Like the playoffs, he was a dominant force on the defensive end. Really, obviously helped improve his draft stock with what he did in the college football playoffs. So I don't think you go wrong with either one of them. But yeah, Shark, why not? We can agree again.
Let's go Ruben Bain.
Yeah.
Number 8, we got the New Orleans Saints. Biggest needs: wide receiver, edge, cornerback, defensive line. My pick, Makai Lemon from USC. Now, the reason why is because what he presented in the combine late in the season last year, he was just a guy that, you could throw out the ball and he can go get it. When you look at Makai Lemon, it's very, very similar to. So, we talked about Drake London, right, being with the Atlanta Falcons. Well, now when you got Makai Lemon in the division, you got 2 USC guys. I think it's a perfect fit for Lemon. And when, you look at, they have Chris Olave, they got rid of Rashid Shaheed. They did pick up Jalen Polk, but Jalen Polk can't be your number 2 wide receiver. Lemon's the guy that will be waiting in the wings for them. And so if I am squeezing that lemon, I'm getting Makai from USC.
Yeah, I could see that. I would say if I were to, they're going to go to receiver, I like Jordan Tyson better. But I'm going to go edge rush here with Sonny Styles. So whoever the Washington wouldn't take, which I have them taking Bain, so Styles I think would fall, next in the 9th spot.
Nice, Sonny. You love some Sonny.
Kansas
City. They got rid of McDuffie, right? Their biggest needs: cornerback, wide receiver, edge, so on and so forth. It's Mansour Delane for me from LSU. Look at LSU pumps out cornerbacks left and right. So
DBU.
DBU, baby. That's what they do. That's who they are. And so when they got rid of Trent McDuffie, yes, they found a way to, get a guy that they couldn't, pay, big time money for because they just didn't seem he was worth it. Well, Mansour Delane is the guy that's just waiting there in the first round with the number 9 pick. And yes, Kansas City has the number 9th pick, which is probably surprising to a lot of people, but they found a way to create an opening, get rid of McDuffie, put in Delane in that slot, and you find a way to get your number 1 cornerback at the 9th pick.
I have the Chiefs going Spencer Fano here. Obviously, Mahomes, getting knocked out. They had O-line issues. I could also see Jordan Tyson here potentially as well at wide receiver. But Spencer Fano, plug and play, the guy who played right tackle a lot at Utah out of need for them, but he can play both sides of the line. I think the versatility there would be highly needed by the Kansas City Chiefs. You got to protect your investment. And Spencer Fano is, once again, a kind of plug and play tackle. Utah's got a pretty good pedigree of linemen on both sides of the ball. So I think this would be a really great pick for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, to be honest. I could see that being, a big part of their decision making too when it comes to Thursday night. Number 10, New York Giants, the biggest need: defensive line, offensive line, cornerback. I am rushing up this pick to get Caden McDonald from Ohio State University. John Harbaugh likes physical guys. He likes guys with an edge, right? Caden McDonald is that type of dude. He played for Ohio State. He finds a way to, create havoc in the middle. When you get Caleb Downs with your first pick, McDonald's with your second, you got to feel good. And they could go tackle here. They could go offensive line to shore up that offensive line. But I think the Giants with these 2 picks are going defense. And that's where I think that you have a statement made going defense with these 2 first picks.
I have them going with Olivia Vega. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Olivia Vega Ione from Penn State offense. Yeah, Ione would have been easier for me to say from the beginning. But I haven't taken Ione. Ione also seems like a guy Harbaugh probably would have taken with the Ravens. But He has that kind of look and pedigree to him. So I don't think he could pass him up here. I talked about obviously them wanting to invest heavily on the offensive side of the ball with Dart, and Harbaugh will take over obviously defense and getting a chance to really put his imprint on the team. Ione could probably come in and, play right away, and then they'll see how it goes with Jermaine Illuminor over at guard. But I think that would be an interesting pick. I mean, obviously Penn State, the pedigree there with their offensive linemen in recent years, pretty good. So I think it's once again another plug-and-play lineman on the interior for the New York Giants.
Yeah, and then another reason why I went defensive tackle too is Dexter Lawrence got traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. They have a gap there. I think Caden McDonald would fit that, and that's another reason why. Moving on to my former team, the Miami Dolphins. All right, their biggest needs are wide receiver, cornerback, and edge. They're going wide receiver here. They didn't do enough in free agency, to make a big splash, right? They do have Malik Washington that they feel good about, Tutu Atwell. They're trying to fit the pieces well. Casey Conception from the Texas A&M, he is one of the best wide receivers since Mike Evans at that time. And, I think, like, if you're looking for a big-time, big-shot wide receiver, a guy with size, Casey Conception is the guy that I'd be looking at or targeting. Maybe Lemon falls to them as well. But they have to go wide receiver here because they let a whole bunch of guys go in their wide receiving core with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So if you look at it, what do you need the most? I think playmakers to go with Malik Willis and Devon Achane. I am licking my chops to get Casey Conception with this pick.
I got him going receiver as well. This is where I see Jordan Tyson coming off. I think it's, once again, gives them a little bit of size there. Tyson's about 6'2", 6'3". Hopefully for them will be the, Ted McMillan type build. They can plug into their offense with Washington and Waddle. So that's who I have them taking.
Yeah, I agree with the wide receiver selection. So whatever they decide, I think it's a smart pick because they need help. Dallas Cowboys, biggest needs, edge, linebacker, cornerback. This is where Arvell Reese falls to them. They're like, oh wow, he fell out of the top 10 right to me at 12. Yes, I'm picking him. They just need another playmaker. They lost Micah Parsons, as we all know. And Arvell Reese is a guy, like you mentioned, his ceiling could be, Micah Parsons. So they're just drafting another type of guy of his caliber. And Arvell Reese feasted at Ohio State University, putting up extraordinary stats left and right. Tackles, like he could just do it all. This guy is a do-it-all type of defensive end, which makes me curious if he will, fall out of the top 10. Might not be likely. I think that maybe a team would be willing to, trade up, maybe, within the 20s, move up to, around the 10 to 12 mark if he is available. So I got Reese going to the Cowboys at number 12.
This is where I have your good friend Mansour Delaney going from LSU. Obviously, secondary is a huge need. The Cowboys were one of the worst defensive teams in the back end last year. Delaney from DBU should help shore that up.
Yeah, they were bad. LA Rams, number 13, wide receiver, offensive line, linebacker. This is where I got Jordan Tyson. Look, Devontae Adams isn't going to be there forever. Puka Nacua, unfortunately, he's going through what he's been going through recently. I think it's one of those things where Tyson comes in and helps and creates opportunity for himself in Sean McVay's offense. I got Tyson at 13.
Yeah, I have another receiver, but I'm going to go with the hometown kid, Makai Lemon, here out of USC.
Okay. Makai Lemonade. He's making lemonade out there in LA. Listen,
the Rams don't have a lot of needs, and I think they're obviously pushing their chips to the table on this championship window. Adding Lemon, I think, is too tantalizing for them. They need another pass catcher, whether it's tight end or receiver. Lemon fills that need for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Baltimore. Baltimore made a lot of different decisions, especially with their coach. Going with Jesse Minter, relieving the duties from John Harbaugh. Biggest need is offensive line, edge, wide receiver. Offensive line, offensive tackle, Caden Proctor from Alabama. This guy is a big specimen. And if you look at like the way that the Chargers were built, offensively on the offensive line, they want big guys, right? And so Jesse Minter coming from the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh's system, he has to hit on this pick, being the first pick. And I think the best safest way to do this is go with the offensive tackle to make sure that Lamar Jackson has more time in the pocket so he's not running around and hurting that shoulder of his. So Proctor at 14.
Yeah, I have them going lineman as well. I would say Monroe Freeling, the tackle out of Georgia, would be my pick here if I wasn't going to go Proctor, but I could see Proctor. Either way, I think we're both saying they're getting a tackle out of the SEC with a good pedigree. Whether it's Bama or Georgia remains to be seen. But, obviously Lamar Jackson's injury, their O-line was dreadful last year. They added John Simpson back at guard. They could use a good young tackle, and whether it's Freeling or Proctor, they would be getting one.
Yep. Tackle, tackle, tackle. That's their motto with the Ravens. Number 15, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Edge, cornerback, linebacker. I got defensive end, Keldrick Falk out of Auburn. They need help on the defensive end side of things. They really haven't had somebody that can be like that bookend, unfortunately. Like, I can't even think of the last time they had a guy that they could rely on, rushing the passer besides maybe Levante David. Jason Pierre-Paul, I have no idea. So that's why I'm taking Falk from Auburn. I think he's the best pick, with that selection.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. Falk's a good one for sure. Maybe they go. I don't know if they consider receiver and Casey Conception just because, Godwin obviously on the decline. You lose Mike Evans. I don't know if they feel confident about what they have enough in Ibuka because he really fell off late in the year. Yeah, especially when the injuries kind of piled up and he became like the clear-cut one.
I traded for him in my dynasty league, so he better be doing something this year.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Casey Conception here.
All right, Casey Conception, love it. I think that kid's a stud in the making. New York Jets, I'll hand it over to you. We selected Bailey with the first pick. Who do they go for with the 16th pick?
I'm going to go with Omar Cooper out of Indiana. I think they obviously could use another receiver. While you saw A.D. Mitchell produce post-trade, and he flashed certainly at times, I think they would look at him as a number 3 option, or, they clearly need another guy to line up alongside Garrett Wilson. Omar Cooper, high production guy, good route runner, good hands, used to playing in inclement weather, a Big Ten wide receiver. I like Omar Cooper here.
I'm going to do something that I probably shouldn't do, but I think a lot of people can kind of see what's going on. I'm going Akeem Mesidor from Miami, defensive end. Look, I know we picked Bailey with the first pick, but this is a division where you need to get after the quarterback in order to create opportunities offensively for your team, right? You got Josh Allen, Drake May, and Malik Willis, right? And what do all those guys have in common? They like to run out of the pocket. So being able to rush the passer at a high level is probably Aaron Glenn's cup of tea. He wants that to happen. I can see Mesidor from Miami in a Jets uniform, 2 bookends on that defensive line. I think it'd be tremendous to see. And I think that's two top tier talents in this draft. How do you feel about that pick?
I would not be thrilled if it was another defensive line front seven guy. If
Okay.
they, assuming they go front seven and rush pass rusher at 2, which I can't imagine they wouldn't be, but that'd be my take on it.
All right. Well, I have Bain being the standing linebacker, and then Akeem Messidor being that defensive end. So
all right.
That was kind of my motto going into this. All right, Detroit Lions biggest needs: offensive line, edge, safety. Offensive tackle Spencer Funnell from Utah. You talked about him earlier. He needs to be the guy because Skipper's out, right? They don't have like a dependent like Penei Sewell, like you mentioned, but they don't have as much credibility on that offensive line, unfortunately, with a lot of guys going away. So I got Funnell, just plug and play at that point at 17.
All right. I would say, this once again, Proctor or Freeling. I have it being a lineman here similar to you. It's just going to be whoever doesn't go. I had Freeling going on my board, so I would say Proctor here.
All right. Minnesota. I got Caleb Lomu from Utah. They're in need of offensive line help.
That's true.
It's demanding with JJ McCarthy, and I think it's like a do or die type of year for Kevin O'Connell. So maybe they go for a big play type of player, but I can see them being boring and going with the offensive tackle to protect JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that either, Shark. But I'm going to have them going Chris Johnson out of San Diego State, help shore up the secondary. Chris Johnson could immediately move into a, outside starting corner role playing up on the perimeter with his length and athleticism. So I think he's got the physical traits to be a real impact corner and help out the Vikings out on the back end.
All right, Carolina at 19. Shout out to my brother, big Carolina fan. Biggest need: offensive line, safety, wide receiver. I don't tend to think they go wide receiver here. I think they go safety. A guy from Toledo, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. You want to talk about a utility knife that you can just plug into your defense, and he is a force of a tackler. I got to go with McNeil Warren at 19.
So I have safety as well, but I have Dylan Teneman out of Oregon.
Okay.
He's a guy that has, from watching Oregon last year, a guy that kind of always flies around the ball, seems to have a nose for the ball, good ball traits, and he's very athletic. Similar in the Cooper DeJean mold, if you get what I'm putting down.
Yes.
He checks a lot. He checks a lot of boxes in that standpoint. So, I think we both have them taking the same position. I just like Teneman out of Oregon better.
Yeah, I think they go safety. They missed out on Javon Holland. I think they wanted him as well, but the Giants found a way to get him. Dallas Cowboys, they need edge, they need linebacker, they need cornerback. I pick edge with Bain, with their latest pick. I'm going with Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee. They need cornerback help, as you mentioned early on. Ticket. They need they need to find a way to make sure that their defense is locked down, and for their sake, like Diggs, right? Like Diggs is no more, right? So I think that unfortunately, the way that it works, McCoy is now plugged into that system, and he can be a viable weapon in that secondary.
I got him going Keldrick Falk, who you had mentioned earlier, edge rusher out of Auburn. Physical traits just through the roof. Guy 6'6", over 270, runs a good 40. Dallas would salivate, I'm sure. Jerry Jones would salivate to bring this guy in to the fold. So I had them taking corner. I have them taking edge rusher here with Falk.
Yeah, you had Delaney with the first pick. Pittsburgh Steelers, their biggest need, yes, cornerback, offensive line, wide receiver. Aaron Rodgers coming back for one more year, right? But let's talk about it. It's quarterback Ty Simpson for me from Alabama. They need a restart, right? We all know Tomlin's out. The only way to restart an organization, kind of like what Miami did, is get rid of the coach, figure out who the coach is and what the coach wants. And they got Malik Willis down in South Florida with Pittsburgh. They are going to, have their eyes on Ty Simpson. He had a really good combine. I think he's a guy that people should have eyes on.
Yeah, I have him going offensive line with Blake Miller. I know you talked about, obviously, tackle as an area of need. Mike McCarthy coming in. Pittsburgh, that just alignment seems to fit the city. It's not going to be the sexiest pick. I know the draft's being held there. But Blake Miller out of Clemson really does fill the need of the tackle position. Help protect, obviously, their aging quarterback. Mike McCarthy, obviously, offensive guy, used to building lines for Rodgers in Green Bay. Now he's going to do it in Pittsburgh.
All right. I do like that pick. And number 22, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. Biggest needs offensive line, edge, defensive line. They're going guard Adane from Penn State University, as you mentioned early on. They need help. Unfortunately, Fluker, was out with an injury, right? No, not Fluker. Who's the guy number 70? I'm blanking. They need help offensively on that. Yeah, Slater. They need help offensively on the offensive line. Harbaugh needs the dominance of a big guard. And so I can see Penn State Adane going to the Chargers at 22.
So I have them going with another Clemson player. So back-to-back Clemson picks for me. TJ Parker, have them going edge rusher. Obviously, Khalil Mack got re-signed, but he's got, maybe a year left. I think Joey Bosa's departure, obviously, over a year ago. Parker kind of now replaces that production with that edge rusher type, and obviously a dynamic player. He's played in a lot of big games when he was at Clemson. So that's who I have the Chargers taking.
Yeah, at 23, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, when I look at Cassius Howell from Texas A&M, he's much needed on that defensive line. They need help on the edge. Whatever edge is available at that pick, they are going to select. They need help desperately on the edge. They're trying to still live off of Brandon Graham years and, Nakobe Dean. Like they're just banking on these guys to be somewhat, decent. But Cassius Howell is the guy that falls to them at 23, and I think it's a great pick.
I have them going Kenyon Sadiq here, tight end out of Oregon. Goddard is not getting any younger. They may lose A.J. Brown, and Sadiq is a dynamic pass-catching threat. Really a guy that can line up anywhere as a tight end, inside, outside, on the line. Very dynamic playmaking threat at tight end. So this would they end up making the Brown trade that everyone expects them to make on June 1st, as reported by Adam Schefter, to New England. I think this would really kind of fill that need. That's why I have the Eagles taken here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Addition by subtraction. I didn't even think of the A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert getting old. It's a great point. Who knows? They might go wide receiver, too, with that pick. At 24 with the Cleveland Browns, they need like an old Joe Thomas type of offensive tackle. Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, SEC, dominant offensive line. They need help tremendously. They got their wide receiver in Tate out of OSU. So why not go with Monroe Freeling at offensive tackle at 24?
Yeah, I have them going Chase Pasantis here. Same concept, though. Lineman plays more guard than tackle, but I think that really does obviously once again fill the need. You got Sanders, you got Judkins. Sorry, excuse me. It's Jacksonville. Yeah, I don't know why I thought it was the Browns for a second. But yeah, no, I got Sudokus here. Obviously you got Trevor Lawrence. Just gave him a big contract. You do have a young running back in Bashal Tutin with Etienne out, and he's gone. So I think lineman's a good way to go here.
It's Cleveland Browns pick from the chart.
From the Jaguars. Sorry, so that's why I had the Browns. So I was right initially.
You were right.
Either way.
Yeah, we'll go back. No worries.
Either way.
Worries. Yeah.
No, Shock, that's on me. That's
what we do.
Either way, young quarterback, young running back. Give me a guard.
Give you a guard. I'm with you. They got to shore up that offensive line. 25. We got the Chicago Bears. Biggest needs: safety, offensive line, defensive line, edge, wide receiver. Guess what? They're going safety for me with Dylan Thyman. Dylan Thyman, as you mentioned early on, ticket with a selection. He's just a safety, that can be that dog, that killer, that center fielder that the Chicago Bears need. And Ben Johnson is looking for that safety. If you look at Detroit, they have Brian Branch in the secondary, right? Well, Thyman can be a plug and play type of situation, and I think he could be a really good safety for the future for the Chicago Bears.
So I'm going to have my third Clemson pick in the last couple picks, but Peter Woods, interior defensive lineman out of Clemson, fills the need in terms of that defensive line. But I understand obviously the need for offensive line here too. But Peter Woods has been like some draft experts have him pretty high. Yeah, is going in the top 15. A few like him around 10 or 11 as well. So if he ends up falling this far, would be a good addition for the Bears.
Yeah, I think defensively that they have to reinforce, what they're capable of doing with different, techniques. And I think they'll go back to doing what they do in Chicagoland. Buffalo Bills, biggest needs: edge, offensive line, linebacker, DB. I'm going linebacker, Anthony Hill Jr. Look, we know that Sean, is out for the Buffalo Bills. They did, trade for DJ Moore. But I just believe that Joe Brady is going to want, a little bit of edge, a little bit of grit on the defensive side. Anthony Hill Jr., I think, is a solid pick with this selection as being a linebacker that can come and pass rush the quarterback, which they need, and desperately the tackle the running backs that come out of that division as well.
I like them going Colton Hood here, corner out of Tennessee. Obviously fills the need in that secondary where they had some tremendous issues at times last year. So I think that would be a good addition for the Bills.
Yeah, I think defensively is where they go. San Francisco 49ers, biggest needs: offensive line, edge, wide receiver. I got them going defensive end Malachi Lawrence out of UCF, because guess what? They need help on the edge desperately. And so I can definitely see, 49ers building that defense all over again. Yes, Robert Saleh in the past, he found a way to make defenses happen, but I think that Kyle Shanahan, needs to put things in place in order for their defense to get better and better every year. Defensive end Malachi Lawrence out of UCF.
I got them going offensive line here, Shark. We talked about Spencer Fano and him playing right tackle. The left tackle at Utah, Caleb Lomo, absolute physical freak, a beast at the left tackle position. Now, obviously, they re-signed Trent Williams, but this is a guy that down the road I think really makes a lot of sense for them. You put in Lomo, he can, play right tackle or he can play guard. And then when Trent Williams retires in a year, you have Caleb Lomo step in.
Yeah, plug and play. That's not a bad pick. Houston, biggest needs: offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. They're going guard here. I got Emmanuel Pregnon out of Oregon. Oregon has a tendency of developing high offensive line talent. I can fully see Pregnon being a guy that can plug and play 4 D'Amico Ryans in that offensive line that's desperately needed with Houston, especially in that division that has two very good defenses.
Yeah, so I think offensive line's got to be the pick here as well. And I have him taking Max Iannaker from Arizona State. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that one as well. Right? Is that
No. I just love how you added it at the end. Like I definitely am pronouncing it incorrectly, but
Iannaker.
Whatever. I'm going Iannaker.
Yeah, it sounds nice. Sounds like a dinosaur's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arizona State offensive line is a huge need for the Texans. We saw that magnified in their postseason exit. I think it'd be a no-brainer for them to go offensive line, and he's the best one on the board at this point.
Kansas City, they're at 29. They got the pick from Trent McDuffie trade with the LA Rams. Biggest need, wide receiver, offensive line, linebacker. Wide receiver, Denzel Boston out of Washington, running up with this pick. They need help. Tyquan Thornton is not the guy. I'm sorry. They have Worthy. They got a lot of good, talented wide receivers, but the issue is they don't have a guy like Denzel Boston that can take off the top. And I feel like they just have had injuries too across the board, within their wide receiving core. Tyquan Thornton is nice to have, but at this point in time, give me Denzel Boston to be that third wide receiver on the depth map.
I think you go Caden McDonald here, interior defensive lineman out of Ohio State. This is a guy that, despite being an interior defensive lineman, has some pass rushing abilities, and he got to reap the benefits with Reese and Styles. And, maybe that magnified his ability a little bit. But in one-on-one situations, McDonald can certainly win. So I think he'd be a great addition to bolster the defensive line.
Yeah, and I was blanking. I was thinking of Rashee Rice as the number 1 wide receiver. But Denzel Boston, I think, would fit perfectly to be the number 3 guy. Miami Dolphins, they got this through the trade with Jalen Waddle. Biggest needs, wide receiver, which I already emphasized on, getting KC Conception, cornerback, edge, and offensive line. I'm going cornerback Colton Hood, Tennessee. They need somebody to just come in and just be better than Jack Jones. They just don't have good secondary members right now. They're trying to find a way back. They lost Jalen Ramsey. They traded him last year to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need help in that secondary. Yes, they could go offensive line here, but I think Colton Hood is the guy that they select with this pick.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I had Hood going to Buffalo. Let's go with Dominique Orange out of Iowa State. Once again, another interior defensive lineman. I think he could really pair nicely with Chop Robinson and ensuring things up in the defensive run. I mean, obviously, you're playing in the AFC East. We know about Buffalo's run game. We know about what New England wants to do with TreVeyon Henderson. The Jets obviously are going to be irrelevant, but they do have Breece Hall still on the roster. So shoring up the inside of the defensive line cannot hurt.
Yeah, cannot hurt. Please, try to find a way to make something happen in that regard, because they are troubling to watch defensively. 31st pick, we got the New England Patriots. Biggest needs, edge, offensive line, defensive line. I got offensive line. I'm going with Iannaker out of ASU.
Okay.
Yeah, I really hit that nail on the head.
Better than me.
Yeah, I think they need help offensive line. You got to protect Drake May. They're going to try to get cute with the edge. I don't feel like that's necessary at this point. They can wait until the second or third round to, fortify that defensive line. But I got an offensive lineman going to the New England Patriots.
So this is where it's interesting. We talk about the A.J. Brown trade, potentially, supposedly, that is going to be It's officially unofficial. So if that's happening, I don't know if they go this route, but I do like Denzel Boston's fit.
Because the Boston name.
Yeah. I mean, how can you get a better fit than that?
Yeah, how can you not? No, I like that pick because Kayshon Boutte is probably going to get traded, especially if, and word has it that they're looking at Kyle Pitts with Atlanta, and they might do a Kayshon Boutte with possibly a pick for Kyle Pitts. So that has been reported. I like to see that happen for the New England Patriots, get a athletic tight end, to go with Hunter Henry. At 32, to round out this first round, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Look, their biggest needs is running back, right? They don't have Walker anymore. Offensive line, DB. I got running back Jadarian Rice out of Notre Dame. Look, Sony Michel was a guy with Georgia, right? And Nick Chubb, right? Sony Michel and Nick Chubb were 1-2 tandem. Rice and Love are very, very similar in regards to what these guys are, how they are capable of doing work. And I mean, these guys put in work. And Seattle needs help in the running back game in order for Sam Darnold to feel more and more comfortable in the backfield. Give me Jadarian Rice out of Notre Dame to close out this first round.
Shark, we're going to end on a similar note because I have the same pick, Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. Listen, Price is as obviously he's, we have them both being, both him and Love going in the first round here. But yeah, I like the comparison of Chubb and Michelle. I also liken it back to, maybe you can appreciate this, but the Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown days when they were at Auburn together. Now, obviously, Price does not come in as highly regarded, but take it from me. Watched a lot of college football, watched a lot of Notre Dame. Jadarian Price will really complement the loss of Kenneth Walker quite well, really backfill that need quite well because he's a similar type of player. He's an in-between the tackle, physical, downhill runner. There's no secrets with him. And he's got a nose for the goal line, scored 15 touchdowns last year as the backup running back. So that tells you all you need to know. Seattle gets their back and replacement from the Super Bowl MVP with a very capable young back in Jadarian Price, who does not have as much tread on the tiles as Love either. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
He doesn't. And people, if you're looking at a dynasty pick late, Jadarian Price is the guy that you have to lick your chops if you got Seattle. So that kind of rounds up the first round. Not kind of. It does wrap up the first round. The NFL draft is tomorrow night. We got the NBA playoffs, talking up shop with Ticket. We also got the Red Sox and Yankees wrapping up their series very, very soon. So, Ticket, any final thoughts regarding?
Well, the Yankees won 4-0 again, so ho-hum.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, excited for the draft. Obviously, this will be released probably probably as it's going on. I would imagine, like maybe, so that'd be great. But yeah, excited to see how things unfold. The NBA playoffs have been really exciting, Shark, like you pointed out. A lot closer series so far. And as we're wrapping up recording this, Detroit has pulled away. And they're interviewing Richard Hamilton, former UConn Husky. So shout out UConn. Once again, I got a UConn mention in on the podcast. So that's great.
Yeah. Surprise. I think he was at the national championship, just like Charlie Villanueva and
he was
Ben Gordon, all those Ray
Allen. Walker.
I mean, come on. Great names, by the way. I'm not knocking those names because those guys can flat out ball. But yes, you snuck in a UConn on the podcast. But yes, this will be edited and produced tomorrow. It will be released tomorrow night, just before the draft. So everybody check it out.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Oh, overtime?
Shark working overtime, I'm saying.
Oh, we got overtime basketball. We got Shark overtime. We got it all. And we can't wait to come back next week with more. Thanks, Ticket.
Thank you.